So my name's Adam and this is John, and today we're going to talk about GPT-J. So slight intro to GPT-J. GPT-J is a natural language machine learning processing system that effectively is designed to take input from the user and generate human-like text in return.
So GPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, it was written by Alex Radford and some of his colleagues. It was published on OpenAI June 11, 2018. It processed long-range dependencies by pre-training on diverse corpus with long stretches of continuous text. GPT-J, which is the open source alternative to GPT-3, is trained using a new library called Mesh Transformer JAX, which uses JAX linear algebra, Google's JAX linear algebra framework instead of TensorFlow, like what Mike and Mike and Zach talked about the other day. And it's trained on a PAL data set, and is also trained as an autoregressive language model using cross entropy loss to maximize the likelihood of predicting the next token correctly. And here's the image of the data set, which it gathers from the internet, which we have from code from GitHub, actual subtitles used in like human dialogue and everything like that.
Yeah, and as he discussed, GPT-J is an open source alternative to GPT-3, which was originally created by OpenAI when it was founded back in 2015. And basically, as I said before, it allows the generation of human text. And it's trained using, said text is gathered using information from the internet rather than like a defined source material. So when it was created back in OpenAI back in 2015, OpenAI was founded by Elon Musk and Sam Altman. However, later on, Microsoft would then obtain exclusive rights to GPT-3. Effectively, if you want to now use the open source project, you have to do so through OpenAI API. But the OpenAI API only allows to read the output from what the user puts in, not modification or use of the material itself on GitHub. And so with GPT-J now available, it's actually a very strong alternative to GPT-3 and actually much smaller as well. So GPT-J uses only 6 billion parameters versus GPT-3's 175 billion, and actually still outperforms despite such in certain areas such as code generation and also allows better language support. So everything what we were able to gather from Python, Java, etc., it supports via their GitHub library.
And with GPT-J, who's in charge of right now is Eleuthera AI right now. The many contributors, sources from his GitHub is 23 contributors, and from a website called Hugging Face Emoji. I don't know why it's named that, but it just says Hugging Face Emoji. That's like literally what it is. But it's credible. And it said in the recent month it was 176,921 downloads.
And so in terms of what they're planning to do in the future, their next project, which they announced as of February this year, was GPT-Neo, or Neo-X rather. And the idea is to help develop further resources to aid in the training of GPT-J. So you basically got this open source company that's providing a free resource to researchers who wants to use the language model on a large data set, but they're competing against Microsoft. And we saw what happened to Netscape when they tried that. And so effectively what they're doing in the process is developing tool sets to allow this. So as he stated earlier, GPT-J, when it's trained on using a massive data set, that was called the Pile. Another side project of theirs, where they compiled text data from everywhere across the internet on all mediums. You can actually download the Pile and train your own machine learning programs against it if you have over 800 gigs of space available on your computer. And what they're trying to do now with Neo is a collaboration with NVIDIA's Megatron language model, and effectively allow you to run GPT-J on GPUs. As a big problem with running a program like this is that it requires a lot of memory, not as in like hard disk storage, RAM, and their Python library, just the library alone, takes up usually 16 gigs of memory, which makes it close to impossible on a consumer level computer. And with NeoX, they can actually optimize their memory allocation and allow better optimization for running GPT-J on GPUs, which can greatly accelerate the performance of it. And the current version of Neo is 20B, which stands for 20 billion parameters. I believe the current version of J is 6B, so they're at 6 billion parameters. But the idea is to just increase the breadth of this process to catch up with 3's 175 billion parameter process.
And it's our citations for GPT. And now we're moving on to our design principles. Okay. So our principle is the solid design principle. It's a design pattern. A design pattern is a reusable solution to common recurring problems, and design principles are a way of solving such solutions. The solid is an acronym for 5 principles of object-oriented design that are commonly used in the development of neural networks and machine learning applications.
So the S is a single responsibility. A class can have one and only one reason to change and thereby have only one job. Some of these we've already talked about here in class. So if you're going to add a class in your program, make sure it's specific to one job. Open-close principle, objects should be open for extension but closed for modification. So if you wish to call on a class, make sure that you're calling on it, not trying to change the class in the process. The Liskov substitution principle, every subclass or derived class should be substitutable for their base or parent class. So I think I was supposed to chuck in some code for this, but I didn't remember. So effectively, if you're extending another class, make sure that if that class has its own use as defined by acronym letter S, that you're able to actually run that extended class on its own without running into error with the class S deriving from. So if you were thinking this like mathematically as a function, like f of x should return like an x value, and f of y should return a y value without like error, effectively. I, interface segregation principle, a client should never be forced to implement an interface it doesn't use, which this is kind of self-explanatory. Might be a jab at Python. Let's see the next. And dependency and version principle, entities must depend on abstractions, not concretions. This was the most confusing one. So I believe this is just from what I was able to further read on it, just a forewarning on the use of concrete data types in certain systems.
I say the use cases or common places where you would use this method is usually in your class where you type in your programming, you would use it to design your classes to make sure that that one class has its functionality in your software components and also in your microservices. I say, and for pros and cons, pros, it's easier to implement changes. It prevents unexpected side effects or future changes or future developments to your components. And it reduces the frequency of required changes by making them independent parts. The cons to it though, just like, I can't remember what chapter it was we was talking, I think it was chapter 8, or, I think it was 7, 8 or 7. With, 7 with when you're making your code more robust, where it does makes too many small entities. It adds, it adds duplicate code to achieve some principles, and then it also leads to complex code not recommended for simple applications.
Yeah, so one thing that we can also show you is with GPT-J, they actually do have a live demo where we can actually test out their language model. And this is via their website, so would anyone like to ask a question to a very powerful AI?
What do you think about humans?
Funny thing about it, that's the first thing we tested it at.
Oh, it was scary.
What is the meaning of life?
I think I tried that one as well.
I swear if it's 42.
Well, you have to phrase the question correctly if you're going to ask that question.
It only takes about a minute or so to run.
I saw a really great, like, somebody like did a reenactment of a conversation that a person had with an AI. It's like killing is fun.
When we asked it, do you love humans? It said, yeah, we love watching humans, seeing humans be happy, and eating humans. I was like, oh, Lord. It'll take a minute. So I guess like some of the gauges I can represent here. Top P is a weird one. That one doesn't really modify much, but temperature, on the other hand, sort of modifies the concreteness of the response. So as you turn up the temperature gauge, it'll begin being less like it'll be a lot more loose with how it responds. When we ran it in future tests, which I don't know if we have time to test out to show the different temperature values, but effectively, if you turn up the temperature to like the maximum amount, you'll just get a response that isn't cohesive at all, just a random string of words. And if you decrease the temperature, it just tries to stay within line of the question. This median amount, it's basically just trying to develop a conversation. I don't know if it froze or if it's just taking a while. Nope.
What's all about to say?
Yeah.
What is TOP?
That one was a bit complicated. Yeah, I couldn't figure out the top P. We read into it, but it gets complicated. Oh, okay.
Did you try again? Were there some quick factors or the connection itself is hard?
Oh, I've asked the complicated questions before. We even threw it off asking if clowns could be unicycles.
Did you say yes? You love humans?
Yeah.
We are having internet problems too.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're actually very slow in the bandwidth. We've been having problems since yesterday, so I don't know if that happened in my time too.
Can you
Hopefully.
link
Shouldn't
this
there some-
Discord server after, so we can all try it?
Yeah, I can post this on the Discord server. Yeah, I can also post links to the rest of the stuff here. So everything that the Luther AI creates is completely open source. Even if you want to look at the pile data set that they use to train this GPT-J, you can just download it and then test whatever you want against it, or whatever you want to do with over 800 gigs of text data.
You have the storage. Go ahead, download.
Yeah, like one thing that we tried running it, like locally, like you can run it just the same through their website, and it just runs on like their end. But if I were to like try running a Luther AI on my own machine and then modifying it in some way or doing whatever I want to it, it just takes so much like computer memory to do at the moment. But I'll probably dabble with it in the future. And right now they're processing with GPT-Neo in collaboration in NVIDIA is supposed to help with that. Because right now it's entirely CPU based. I don't know if this is gonna work.
When we refresh the page.
Yeah, I think it's probably the school's internet. 'Cause
Yeah, try refreshing the page.
My tablet gave me an answer to.
It did? You
Which
tried
one?
it out?
I asked her what is the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything.
What did it say? That'd be cool, because I'm 42. I feel
Mere mortals ask this question every day. They have the same basic ignorant view of the universe as the earliest humans had, that the earth was the center of the universe and the sun the only source of light. It was not until the Renaissance that humans began to understand that the earth was not the center of the universe, and that there were other stars and galaxies.
Oh my
Okay, so this is the result of that.
The ultimate
Got to
question.
throw into a
Oh.
recursive loop before, but never like with the first statement.
The ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is a valid question to ask. Unfortunately, most people who ask it have no idea how to answer it. The ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything is, and then it just cut off.
Yeah.
And it said, send this result as a prompt. Of course, I wanted to read that before I.
What did you set the temperature at?
It's the same settings.
Same settings?
I didn't change the settings.
Okay.
Alright, well.
We are in some kind of.
Wow. So do you love humans? Broke the.
I think we tried that one,
I
didn't we?
think it's trying to be sarcastic.
Yeah, I think it's just interrogating
You look-
you.
Well, it's not going to like return the same response each time.
Okay, so what should we ask that's simple?
Ask it if it knows the Muffin Man.
What's the best flavor of ice cream? Yeah, do you know?
Do you know the mushroom?
Do you know the Muffin Man? Muffin,
Yes,
Muffin,
yes.
Muffin,
Muffin.
Muffin Man.
Muffin Man.
Yes, he lives on Drury Lane.
Jury.
I don't know, right spelling?
Yes,
Yeah.
Should I put a question mark?
probably.
Try getting rid of the white space below your shirt there. So you didn't enter. Oh no, okay.
It's simple, man.
Yeah, I think we asked it a question as well, do dreams smell like John Cena? Just to see what it would say. Because part of the Turing test, right, is you have a robot on the other end, you have a conversation with it, and it's to see if you are unable to discern if that is a computer or a person, then it passed the Turing test. Of course, if you spit either what we got before, what Stan just wrote out, I don't think it's going to pass. But when the peculiar thing is, what if you ask it a question that fundamentally does not make sense? So, like, do dreams smell like John Cena? A human's not going to know how to respond, but the machine is coded to respond to you. So, it kind of has to. Unless it, asks you to, clarify a question. And what was really strange as well is that it was able to actually create a cohesive, paragraph in return. So it was yeah, if you have a good dream, it smells good, like sweet flowers and stuff. But if you have a bad dream, it smells like John Cena.
So basically, it answered the question as if you were talking to somebody using masculine.
I asked it a question and I got a response, but I don't understand it.
What did you ask it?
I asked it, would you like a cookie?
Or what did it respond?
It said, I am the director of the Center for the Study of Religion and Conflict at the University of Notre Dame. I am the author of God and Empire, Roman Catholic Reflections on the American Founding. And it has a citation. My research has appeared in journals such as American Historical Review, Journal of Church and State, Journal of Religious History, Journal of American History, Journal of the Early Republic, and Social Science History.
And you just copy
I have
paste it.
I have published 2 collections of essays, edited another, and authored another.
Alright, let's just.
And then there's this